Hupacasath. My English name is Judith Sayers. I wanted to record or to use this photo to talk about a very important moment in Hupacasath history. And this was in March of 2003 when we opened the Hupacasath House of Gathering, which is Hupacasath Hishimshiak in our language. We had been operating out of our old building in the basement and the double wide trailer, and we were never able to have community events at our old hall because it just wasn't big enough, especially Christmas dinners. And so it was exciting to open up a space where we had lots of office space, plus a big facility where we could have our community dinners. So we had gone out and fundraised about $1 million, and we basically mortgaged another $1 million for this building. But we were able to create our own artwork and to use a lot of cedar, which is important to us, of course. And when we were finally ready to open the building, we invited everybody, all of the Nuu-chah Nations, the Tribal Council, many dignitaries. We were graced with the presence of the Lieutenant Governor and Minister Stan Hagen, and we were excited to open the doors to people to see what we had done. And we were, way ahead of the curve on getting ourselves our own office building. And so we celebrated in great style in Hupacasath tradition, our dancing, our singing. We spent months practicing. We were advised by our speakers group, our elders, which consisted of Jesse Hamilton, Rosie Tatouche, Dorothy Unger, Vernon Ross. But they guided us every step of the way of what we should do, the protocols, and how we should do it. And so, it's a really great moment. Brandy Lauder made us a great big cedar ribbon so we could cut that. And in the tradition, we also kept half, and that was in our cabinet. And we gave the other half to a group that had helped us. So we had all of our young singers and dancers participate, and it was a very inclusive family event. Like all the Hupacasath families were there and participating in a very proud moment.
This is my grandmother. Her name is Nessie Watts. She's a fine example of Hupacasath people that we can look back at and respect for the way they treated others. My grandma had 12 children. The house, which I lived in with her on occasion between the time I was 3 until I was 6. This was the house on the corner of River Road and Josephine. It was Mama's house across from what we used to call Mama's Beach. And these are her 12 children. My auntie made this, that she had. That's my grandma. This is my Auntie Bipsy, who died. My Uncle Ivan, who died when I was quite young, those two. And from left here, we got my Uncle Ronald Hamilton, Uncle Buddy Hamilton, James Hamilton, also known as Uncle Hob, Auntie Gal, who made this picture for us, my mom Sandra, her twin sister Sharon, another picture of my grandma in her yard. My grandma's oldest son, his name was Hugh Watts. We called him Uncle Tuffy. This is my Auntie Nita. She married into Cowichan and has lived there most of her life. And that's Uncle Bibi, Danny Watts. I'm very proud of where he came from. We have many people that I grew up with that aren't related to me but are Hupacasath, that also had a great care for all of the young people.
Morning, my name is Tommy Tatouche. Thank you, Slade. I'm on the Somash River right now, I got lots of stories of the Somash River. I grew up on the beach right here. My house is just over the river right here. But this is where I grew up. I've been fishing this river for 40 years. I got lots of stories. We got late Auntie Jessie and Uncle Arnold used to throw their net out right here, and they used to go out. You could see the tip of their canoe in the bush right there. They used to fish that like 30 years ago. We go up here, and up here right up on the other side of the rocks there, my brother and Elton Watts, we were fishing, and there used to be an airport up by where those buildings are up there. There used to be like 3 float planes, and the planes would just push out, and they were supposed to go up higher, and then they'd come flying down the river, and then they'd take off right here. My brother Tony Tatouche and our good friend Elton Watts from Hupacasath, they had their net out. Elton had his net out right where the rocks are. My brother was up higher, probably about maybe 50, 80 yards above Elton. The plane pushed off from the airport, came flying down the river and skipped over my brother's net, and Elton was sitting right in his boat, and the plane just hit Elton's boat. The only thing Elton could do was just dive in the water. The whole river just, they could hear the plane, boom. I was at the house on a break there. I came running over, and there was a float plane laying on this little boat. Tony and Elton were had to turn around to work together to turn around and get Elton safe. That pilot got fired before he even got to the float, we were heard. Elton's family went after the pilot of the plane because if Elton didn't dive in, he would have got seriously hurt.
It was a Lahal.
Wow.
Lahal tournament. The 2 bands were. The picture was taken of team members of that Lahal team. They were comprised of both Sishat and Hupacasath. Playing as a team, and looked like they were proud to be members of the same team. It's something the 2 bands used to do prior to now. Now it seems like we're separated going in our, well, I should say separate ways, but the 2 bands should be paddling in their own, in the same boat or alongside each other and paddling in unison, together we'd be strong. That's the reason why I like that picture, because it seems to me like that picture was, they're enjoying themselves and they're playing as a team. The 2 bands, you can tell they were happy, and I think most of the people in that picture are gone now. There was 1966, something like 67 maybe.
Hi, I'm Bobby Tatouche, and I want to talk about something that I remember quite fondly when I was probably about 16. So we're looking at 1998, maybe, around there. Anyway, Hupacasath used to recognize all the students at a yearly barbecue or dinner at the end of the year. And they used to recognize the students for not just their scholastic stuff, but other items. So, as you can see, I don't know, can you see that? I was actually recognized for being wonderful with children. And so I thought it was kind of awesome to be recognized for something that you don't see in school. Even though they did recognize grades and everything else, this certificate just said that they actually paid attention to who I was. And it was something that I wasn't expecting. I was actually helping out with the dinner, and I got called out to accept the award, which was even better. So that's my wonderful, amazing memory that we used to do and we don't do anymore.
Good afternoon. My name is Buddy here in Hamilton, a very proud member of the Hupacasath First Nation in Port Alberni, whose traditional land we are standing on here as we overlook the corner, our old swimming hole, as we all grew up in this neighborhood. And by this neighborhood I mean across the street there. I grew up in my mom's house, Nessie Watts. Next down the road from there is the Tatouche family, then the Lauder family, Tatouches again, the Hamiltons. Up on Josephine Street here we had the Mileses, the Hamiltons, the Burleys, the Colemans, and even the Anchor family. We all congregated down here, and we called it the corner because it was at the corner of River Road and Josephine Street. And we all came here because we used to have a really nice beach here, complete with the swing here that we used to come off the tree with, and we'd swing out and let ourselves out way out there.
Like they would take us down to Auntie Jessie's beach there, and we'd go swimming, or we'd be up at the dam and that. And when we would have our fish days, we'd all have to clean fish, and they would my mom and Auntie Jessie and Grandpa Arnold and my dad and them would all be working together to get both of our smoke houses all filled and ready to go for our fish. And we just always, as kids growing up down there, I don't know about anyone else, but I always felt really safe to be able to kind of go anywhere I wanted to go to, because we were sheltered from everything. So we just naturally all felt safe. But then in our area there, we all knew each other. We were all, as far as we knew, is that we were all family. We were one, and there was no one parent. It wasn't just my mom kept an eye on us, and Auntie Jessie only kept an eye on George and Joy and them. It was like we, aunts and uncles and grandparents and older cousins and that. It was almost like everyone worked together. So it was almost like they say, it takes a community to raise a child. That was kind of how it felt like, because everybody helped everybody out back then. And
favorite memory with the community was when we'd have fish day at Paper Mill Dam, because my mom would wake me up at like 4 in the morning, and we'd go, and then she'd wake me up and say fishy, fishy, fishy day, and I would just go in the car with my pajamas on, and we'd go there and we'd have like hot chocolate my mom would make in like a thermos, and we would go there and I'd hang out with like all my cousins. Sometimes I would sleep in the car because I would get really tired, and there's like a bonfire and we'd stand by there if we get cold, and we'd like go on like the edge of the water, like the edge of the bank, and we'd catch snakes, and then we'd scare people. We like scared Joanne one time really bad because she hates snakes, and she was just sitting down and we scared her, and she screamed really loud. And then usually people bring like hot chocolate from like Tim Hortons or something, and like Timbits or something, and we'd like play at the park that they added in after a while. And sometimes we'd get like English muffins from like McDonald's or something, and hash browns. And then my mom would always go into the water and like help set the nets, and it was really cold. But sometimes if it was like when it got like at like 6 a.m. because it kind of got nicer and like warmer out, we'd go swimming, like for a swim, and we'd always like sit on these rocks and watch people like set the nets and everything. And then when they're done that, we'd like stand down the ramp and we'd wait for our fish, and then it would be funny because we'd all watch like the fish flop around in the thing and we'd laugh.
So I have fond memories of the summers when I was a child on Ossiswinis, the corner of River Road and Josephine. My grandmother Nessie Watts lived there, and I believe at the time her son Buddy Hamilton lived there. And myself and my young cousins and my sister would hang out there, and we would swim a lot across the street in the river. There was an old tire on a rope attached to a big tree there, so we would swing out on that rope dive into the river, splash around. Lots of kids around. Brad, Greg, Nessie, Colleen, Tracy, Watts was there, Alton, Randy and Aaron, of course. Lots of kids, and we would camp in the backyard. My dad had a camper, so we would come from Courtney and we'd camp there in the summers and hang out. The river being the big attraction. We would swim all day, come and run around the house and the yard. It was pretty cool.
I'm going to talk about the welcome figures. I can't remember which year it was, but I was pretty young. And I remember all our family were together, standing there, and there was a dance and everything. And it was really fun and enjoyable watching it get put up. And we had like an elders gathering about half a year ago, maybe a year ago, and I totally forgot about I was even there. But they have postcards of it, and I got a postcard, and it was really nice to see because I forgot about being there because I was really young.
We just made our, all kinds of different things we did for fun. Like Sherman, when we were smaller, would have to look after us because my mother did housekeeping elsewhere, and of course my dad was always working either with the fishing boat or somewhere. And Sherman, they'd say, Sherman, look after them. And then he had a hard time getting us to go in because we were always playing outside. It was getting dark. And he said, hear those frogs croaking across the river? He said, that means the bear's around. The bear knows how to swim really fast. So you better get in the house. It's time to get in. So he had all kinds of things he'd say to scare us to go in the house. And then sometimes he wanted to get in the play too, so the next time we were out there playing and it was starting to get dark, he'd put on a Halloween mask and he'd say, Shandu the magician is coming after you. And we all screamed and we'd be running around the house while he was chasing us. Just stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun.
Oklahoma Klahatua, Hupacasath. My name is Klahatua Rod Sayers, and I am Hupacasath. I've been asked to tell a story about my memories in the community with Hupacasath, and I think I want to talk about my experiences working with the Fluent Speakers group. The Fluent Speakers program officially started sometime in the late 1990s, and the group was composed of, from the beginning, Willie Tatouche, we had Jesse Hamilton, there was Rosie Tatouche, Dorothy Unger, Edward Tat Tatouche. Those are the main speakers from our community. We also recruited Vernon Ross and Nelson Keatla and other visiting speakers over the years. We continued with the group for as long as we could, and now those speakers are all gone. It's been some time since the passing of our last Fluent speaker. There are obviously speakers of our language, but that was our speakers group. And what was amazing about working with the Fluent speakers is how beautiful our language is when they got together and spoke together. I don't know how much of the language they spoke in their homes, but when they got together, they really got going, and they told stories of the history of Hupacasath. It wasn't just about doing research. That was a lot of it, and the result of our research was 9 books, and we have a calendar and a video that are all have been saved and are there for all of us to use. But they talked about the history of Hupacasath and the history of our people and our community members and, our association with other tribes of New Channel. And what was the most amazing thing about them was their sense of humor. They would tell stories and they would laugh and they would laugh and they would laugh. They'd be having such a good time. People from other parts of the office would come and poke their head in the door to see what the heck was going on in there. How come they're having such a good time? And it, I was very fortunate to have had that experience. And I think we were very fortunate as Hupacasath to have had these speakers who were also advisors, who were storytellers, grandparents, they were great-grandparents, they were fishermen and, predict the weather, and, it was a really fabulous time.
Uklama Kiwitana, Hupacasath. My name is Vanessa Charlong. I am from the Watts and Hamilton family, and my memory of growing up within the Hupacasath community was coming every summer from Courtenay, where I lived, to come participate in the Nuchanuth Games. I would run in the track, swim for Hupacasath, and since there weren't very many of us, a few of us played baseball with the Port Alberni Friendship Center. So here's a picture of me looking pretty intense, back catching. And one of my favorite memories there was sitting in between games waiting, and I heard a voice come over the loudspeaker with a very deep, booming sound saying, "Nessie, Nessie, come here." So I went over to the announcer's booth where my uncle Huey Watts, our late Chief Tuffy Waiswasenup, was emceeing, and I was a little scared because he was always intimidating to me. So I went over to see what he wanted, and he asked me if I had eaten that day, and I told him that I hadn't. So he gave me some money to make sure that I went and had dinner and took care of myself. So those were some of my favorite memories growing up, was coming and participating in the Nuchanuth Games. Shoot.
Hello, my name is Sharon Van Volsen. I am from Hupacasath First Nation here in Port Alberni, Vancouver Island. I am from the Watts family and the Lauder family. My mother is Nessie Watts. I just want to show you this shawl. It's a shoulder shawl that I made. I wear it to various events like potlatches, family gatherings, or whatever. And I will put it on in a minute. And I made this cedar bark hat. You can see it is a first attempt. I'm sure it could be a little bit neater, but I enjoyed making it, and I thank Geraldine Edgar for being the teacher to showing me how to make it. So I'll put it on with the shawl. Let me put this on, and I'm going to stand up and show you what it looks like. How does that look?
Okay, this is a picture I took, I don't know how many years ago, but when the British Columbia Games were held in the valley here, Beebe sat on their planning board, and as a thank you to him, they gave us a massive tent. I think it was 40 feet by 40 feet. And he wanted to have a thank you for the tent celebration. And I told him that that would be him thanking them for thanking him. So instead, I suggested we do this mi'at ceremony, which is to welcome the sockeye. And it was really successful, and it's, I think, the event I can think of that brought the greatest number of people in our community together, and they all seemed to have a good time. We sang a few songs. Yeah, So that's myself in the lead mask. I think Tommy Tatouche was behind me. Mark Joseph is over here. And I can't remember who wore the fourth mask. At any rate, this is an old mask and we made the others off of it. This was interesting. I designed a salmon for the ladies' shawls, and I think we did like 30 shawls. And I designed a salmon, and Nelson Joseph carved probably 60 or so salmon that we attached to headdresses. I think someone might have helped him, I'm not quite sure. We had old Carrie Mickey. I asked Carrie Mickey if she'd come and help our ladies learn how to make dance gear out of cedar bark. We had a lot of fun. And I remember my big brother Tuffy barbecuing. I remember late Arnold Thomas barbecuing. Jim Tatouche was helping at the barbecue. There's a lot of people, and people I've never ever seen do anything. We're out helping and dancing and singing and just having a good time. I remember we blocked the Trans-Canada Highway, and I think we blocked it for about an hour and a half, and the police were irate, but they weren't about to stop us from dancing across the highway. And it was a good thing. It was a good thing in every way. And I like it when we do things that are respectful and thoughtful and, you know, teach young people something. The whole point of the ceremony is to teach us to respect those fish. And it seems to me that more and more people just see dollar signs when they see sockeye. They don't grow up with the taste of it in their mouths. When we were kids, we used to just ache for the first fresh herring of the year. And then following herring, we knew we were going to get fresh sockeye. And then later on, spring salmon. We literally craved that first taste of fish. So celebrating the arrival of the fish seemed to me to make sense 5,000 years ago, and it makes sense 500 years ago, and makes sense today. I think it still makes sense. And I always been of the mind that we should do it again and not do it for show. Do it to show our gratitude for those fish.
Here, my parents are Molly Watts and the late Rick Watts. My grandparents are the late Huey Watts, or Tuffy, and the late Frida Coots. I grew up in Port Alberni. I've now been in Victoria for the past 7 years, degree at UVic, formerly a student recruiter, currently an intern with the government, and thereafter being in Haida Gwaii and traveling. Bringing it into the community and the ideas we have here together and story sharing of our past, I remember very fondly our community fish days. Our community fish days growing up were a blessing and a beautiful way to bring our community together in such a special way. I remember waking up at the crack of dawn with my siblings and with my family and being just getting out of bed like, oh, let's get out of bed. But even though in the moment at a young age, having to wake up was very difficult, it was still something I really appreciated, and deep inside was something I look forward to. I'd wake up in the morning, having that family connection, hearing the birds sing with that summer air all around us, bringing that in as we go towards the river to gather fish, and doing that as a community together. This is an activity and tradition that we share together and connected us to who we are in our culture and our identity, and a beautiful way to bring community together. In gathering all those fish, I remember as well, the barbecued fish was amazing, and that was something I also really enjoyed. So if I'm to share back and think about what were some fond memories growing up in community, for me, it was community fish days, and that was something I really appreciated and a memory I hold on to very fondly from back then to now, and will continue to forever forward. I'm proud to be Hupacasath and to know where I come from, and appreciate this opportunity to share Wishing you all the best. Much love, respect. Chew.